Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all the panels. My name is Nur Ain Shafinas and my research partner Nur Naziha Adila will presenting our research study, which is the perceptions of students towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0 among Uitm Seremban students. Okay, first and foremost, I'm gonna start with the research background. In recent years, the Industrial Revolution 4.0 has become the subject of great interest and are expected to gain a local and international traction as they become part of the central initiative of different governments. According to Uitm 2007, the goal of Industrial Revolution 4.0 is to achieve higher efficiency and productivity in operation and a higher level of automation. Forward-looking principles such as the Internet of Things, 3D printing, autonomous vehicle, biotechnology, and nanotechnology are embedded within the Industrial Revolution 4.0. There are three factors that influence the perceptions of students towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0 in this research study, which are the knowledge, awareness, and the readiness of students to face the transformations in the industry. The purpose of this study is to determine the perception of students towards the readiness of the Industrial Revolution 4.0 among Uitm Seremban students. Okay, let's move on to the problem statements. According to Farhan 2019, Tan Sri Dr. Lee Min Fong, lecturer at the Department of Professional Education in UTHM Malaysia, indicates that Malaysian youths is lacking of knowledge to operate with the smart technology and has low requirement to navigate through the digital ecosystems and the creativity to produce a digital product. Moreover, according to Page 2020, the level of unemployment in Malaysia from 1999 to 2002, the unemployment rate was about 3.38%. The industry has been a major contributor to the country's gross domestic product. Therefore, this issue has been supported by the former Minister of Education, Dr. Mazli Malik. In his statement, he states that due to current challenges by the globalizations and the Industrial Revolution 4.0, it can diminish the future job opportunity for the graduates, as it seems like no job exists due to low competency in equipped students with the current demands of skills and ability. Furthermore, according to Ujakpar et al. 2020, the research conducted in South Korea shows that learners are aware of Industrial Revolution 4.0 but not aware on its implementations. Besides, a poor connection exists between the command of English by graduates and their employability in the private sector. Also, one of the problems occurs in this research, according to the Tay 2019. Okay, next, I will explain our research questions and research objective in our research study. The first research objective is to examine the relationships between the level of knowledge and perceptions towards the readiness of the Industrial Revolution 4.0 in Uitm Seremban. Second, to examine the relationships between the level of awareness and perceptions towards the readiness of the Industrial Revolution 4.0 among students in Uitm Seremban. And the third research objective is to examine the relationships on the level of readiness and perceptions towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And the last research objective is to identify the significance predictor of the perceptions of Industrial Revolution 4.0 among students in Uitm Seremban. Hence, the research questions is the reflections of research objective. On the other hand, this is our conceptual framework. For independent variable, it consists of three variables, which is the first one, the level of knowledge, and second one, the level of awareness, and the last one is the level of readiness of students towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0. For our dependent variable is the perception of students in Uitm Seremban towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Okay, for the first independent variable is knowledge. According to Rosanna 2019, students are unable to express or imagine how digital change will affect their of educations and their future career. And most of the students have not been introduced well of the Industrial Revolution 4.0, and it might be too focused for the academic program alone to make them ready to work and ready to enter the industry. For the H null, for the first independent variable is there is no relationships between the knowledge and the perceptions of student in Uitm Seremban towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Next, for the H1 is there is a relationships between the knowledge and the perceptions of student in Uitm Seremban towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Moreover, for the second independent variable is awareness. According to Uchapa et al. 2020, the facts that educational institutions prepared for all sectors is more prominent, and if the trainees are not prepared with the basis and valuable skills for this Industrial Revolution 4.0, this could have a negative effects and lead to the more displacement of manpower and technology. For the H null, for awareness, is there is no relationships between the awareness and the perceptions of students in Uitm Seremban towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Next, for the H1 is there is a relationships between the awareness and the perceptions of students in Uitm Seremban towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Furthermore, for the third independent variable is readiness. According to the study from Azmi et al. 2018, it shows that low level of self-confidence and attitude issues among graduates were one of the issues that caused a readiness concern to the Malaysian graduate unemployment. Next, so for the H null, for the third independent variable is there is no relationships between the readiness and the perceptions of students in Uitm Seremban toward the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Meanwhile, for the H1 is there is a relationships between the readiness and the perceptions of students in Uitm Seremban towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0.
Thank you, Nur Aisha Finas. I'm Nur Nazia Adila bint Hanizam. I will continue the presentation, which is the research methodology part. For research design, we have chosen the quantitative service study for our research design, whereby it can help the researcher to create a large amount of data for the generalization of the data to be achieved. For unit analysis, the research will focus on students of Uitm Seremban 3 as a unit of analysis that will be the main sources of data. This is because we want to know their perception towards the Industrial Revolution 4.0 as they will face it in the future. For the sample size, there are 218 number of sample measurements are selected and tested to get data. The total student population at Uitm Seremban altogether faculties including FSPPP, FSKM and FSR is 5,522 students. But only 360 number of respondents are going to be the sample size for this study. But according to Jack E. Fincham, a response rate approaching 60% for most research should be the target of the researcher. So our research takes 60% of the 360 of the sample size, which is only 280 students be a respondent of this study. Meanwhile, the researcher choose convenient sampling as a sampling technique because this technique are time saving, easy to succeed in, cost effective and cheap. This is because we spread our questionnaire through online. Next, for data measurement, we have chosen Likert scale as measurement whereby it will label from 1 to 5, where the 1 is strongly disagree and 5 is strongly agree. For data collection, there are consists of 5 sections, where section A is for demography, Section B, knowledge toward Industrial Revolution 4.0. Section C, awareness toward the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Section D, readiness of students toward Industrial Revolution 4.0. And Section E, perception of students on Industrial Revolution 4.0. Then the data analysis, the researcher choose a Pearson correlation and multiple regression. Then I will continue to research finding. In the research study will be the demographic profile. The first demographic profile is the gender. So female has the highest percentage of the gender, which are 62.4%, which the frequency is 136 respondents. For the age, most of them is 21 until 23 years old, which is 76.6%, and which is 167 responded. For the current academic, most of the students is specialist degree holder, which is 81.7%. Meanwhile, the frequency is 178 responded. The faculty is FSPPP is the highest percentage, which is 55.5%. The frequency is 131 responded. Most of them is final year student, which is 69.3%. The frequency is 151 respondent. So the student mostly agree with the IR 4.0 give impact to their future job, which is 99.1%, which is 216 respondent. And most of them also agree that the employers put selection criteria based on the non-technical education rather than their grades, which is 80.7%, which is the frequency is 176 respondents. Next, we go to the main finding. The first objective, the researcher used percent correlation and the result is R 0.526 and P is 0.00. Since P is less than 0.05, so the researcher reject H01 and accept HA1, which is there is a positive relationship between knowledge and perception of student towards IR 4.0. This second objective is the researcher also used percent correlation and the result is R 0.768 and P 0.00. Since P is less than 0.05, so the researcher reject H02 and accept the HA2, which is there is a positive relationship between awareness and perception of student towards the IR 4.0. The next objective is the researcher used percent correlation and the result is 0.743 and P is 0.00. Since P is less than 0.05, so the researcher reject H03 and accepted the HA3. And the last objective is the researcher used multiple regression and the result is R squared 0.666. Since the beta for awareness is high, which is 0.523 and P is 0.00, so the awareness of students towards the IR 4.0 is important and positively impact the perception of the student towards IR 4.0. Then we go to research recommendation. The first recommendation is roles of ministry to improve and promote IR 4.0. The ministry plays an important role in spreading awareness and knowledge in IR 4.0. The demand of the industry to boost their production was a new challenge of nation to adapt with it. For example, the Ministry of International Trade and Industry needs to be concerned about a national platform of framework in place to coordinate programs and structure collaborative and aligned methods to meet the demands of Industry 4.0. So, the ministry must prepare well in every aspect to train the students, especially at higher levels such as university students, to be ready in this new era of industry. The next recommendation is commitment of the student. Students should develop themselves to be more ready to enter the industry in this era. To meet the demand of the organization, students must have a good knowledge and skills to be part of the organization. Thus, as a student, the objective of industrial training that have been introduced by the university must be understood well. So, the readiness to enter the industry must start from the student itself to develop their skills and abilities to meet the IR 4.0 requirements. The third is role of the education institution. All education institutions, either university or schools, need to prepare students for the fourth industrial revolution. Education institution must educate the student to be more creative and innovative, since at the school, while university in Malaysia must restructure their education system to be aligned with the demand of the industry. Then we go to research limitation. The first limitation is limited sample size. Researchers only focus on students of Uitm Seremban, but other universities may have different perception of IR 4.0. The more respondents from other universities, the more accurate the data obtained, and the researcher can see various perceptions from students who have different university backgrounds. Second is generalization of finding. Generalization of finding means the feasibility of researcher to get research finding from other areas, but the researcher only got respondents from Uitm Seremban students because of time constraint and difficult to get respondents in other university due to the MCO implemented by the government. Meanwhile, if researchers conduct research at other universities, the possibility of students to get various perception and knowledge of IR 4.0 is increased and the data collected is more accurate. Third is lack of student cooperation. Researchers find it difficult to get respondents from students. This is because students do not want to give cooperation and spend some time answering the questionnaire provided. We had to disseminate the questionnaire online using WhatsApp application and Google document as our research was done during the MCO period. So the last limitation is weakness of quantitative method. Using the quantitative method in research will be complicated, expensive, and time-consuming to conduct this study. This is because researchers need to distribute questionnaires according to the number of sample size and may take time because they want to surpass the number of respondents based on the sample size. Then there are several suggestions for future research. First is apply larger sample size. As a recommendation, researchers can use a larger sample size of respondents. This means researchers can expand the sample size to other universities and not just focus on Uitm Seremban students only. Therefore, researchers should do research on other universities such as UKM, UTM, USM, and so on. This is because researchers can get better student perception of the IR 4.0 from various university students. Second is focus on data quality. In the future, researchers should focus on data quality and not just focus on data quantity alone. This is because if the researcher only focus on quantity, it tends to get inaccurate data and will cause certain errors in the study. Therefore, researchers should focus on the quality of data obtained from the respondent. Third is spread questionnaire widely. This means researchers should involve students from other universities in Malaysia and should involve public university and private university. Thus, research conduct at different universities gave various results of student perception of readiness for the IR 4.0. Last but not least, is use qualitative method. Researchers are advised to use qualitative method in future research. Qualitative method in research can provide more accurate results and make it easier for students to get respondents. This is because using qualitative method in research, researchers can make several direct interviews with respondents and method can encourage researchers to obtain more accurate data. The last section is conclusion. So I will conclude our research study. This research study has highlighted the researcher with new information on the relationship between knowledge, awareness, and readiness toward the IR 4.0. This study also gives the researcher an opportunity to develop the responsiveness of students to the current issue in Malaysia towards the IR 4.0. Last but not least, as the study showed an increment between knowledge, awareness, and readiness to the IR 4.0, it proved that this perception is fundamental to the employers to recruit the fresh graduate as their workforce. That's all from us. Thank you.